Hey everybody, this is Tom at Talent Guitar Works. I'm in a really tight space right now. It's a 22 foot by 22 foot garage at my new house, and I'm waiting for the big shop to be built, which is, it's going to take time. But in the meantime, I still have people that need setups done. My friend Kurt Mays brought this in and brought his SG bass in the other day for me to do setups on. This one I hung on to for a little bit because he just bought it. He said go through everything, so I did. So it's bringing back a lot of memories working in a tight space of when I started out, and I said I could do all this guitar work and repair work out of a really tiny environment if I used my head and put things on wheels and have those flippable work decks that I can mount 3 power tools to and rotate through. And then as you start doing that, you start realizing that how much time it takes you to reset between tools that you're going to use. And it does help you in one way where it keeps your order of operations, to the point. You watch what you're doing if you have to change things over. When I was a kid, I was really wanted to get involved heavy in woodworking, and I was wanting to get the Sears bandsaw, the radial arm saw, the table saw and stuff. And my parents were like, what about this shopsmith? And I was like, yikes, no. And that was it. I was like, yeah, no. And the shopsmith is a great system, and they, it was the do-it-yourself through the homeowner thing where you had one motor and you had all the attachments that had to be set up to go on there. The one problem with all that is you have to calibrate every one of those attachments. Calibration takes time. This is why I said the order of operations becomes intrinsically important to you, because you don't want to have to be going back and forth and take hours to do something that in a larger shop may take 15 minutes. So, having said that, my stuff is still on wheels, all the big stuff. Some of the big stuff is not on wheels, and there's a reason for that. It's stuff that you don't want to move. And one of the things I don't want to move once I set it up is my bandsaw. And it's a big grizzly bandsaw, and it weighs probably about 300 pounds. And once it sits on the floor, the place it's at is fine. Now there's also some tools that I have to anchor. And the one tool, and everybody that's got one is going to tell, if you have a twin-headed buffer that's bench mounted, it's got to be anchored. Because when you start pushing on that, it's gonna, if you don't have wheels on it, if you have wheels, it's gonna run away from you. But even with the locks on it, it's gonna run away. But if you just set it on the floor without anchoring it, it's gonna walk away from you while you're using that buffer. It's just the nature of the beast. I always anchor my radial drill press down. And I also anchor my grinder down. And the reason for that is I don't want it moving, and I don't want anything to get in there to mess up level. Level is important on that, and that's why I have a radial drill press, so I can make nice perpendicular holes in guitar bodies for string throughs. And if you don't know what the radial is, I'll take some pictures of it and post it later on. But it's a shop box, and basically the motor is at one end of a shaft, and at the other end is the arbor, and the pulleys with the belts run between them. And there's a fitting on there that I'm able to extend or retract the arm to make the distance from the throat, the vertical post of the drill press, I can make it increase away from there or decrease it back. I can also rotate it on an angle to make angled cuts if I wanted to. The one thing I will say about any of the new drill presses, if you watch Stu Mack and you watch Dan Earlywine like I did, I watched all his videos. I saw the one where he was putting frets in with his drill press, and I said, that's the ticket, and I tried to do that with the pop metal table attachment that I have for the shop box. Don't do it. You're gonna break that table attachment. I think it cost me like 90 bucks with shipping for them to send me a new one to put on there. I was heartbroken. I was like, what? Well, with the old cast iron drill presses, you could do that. You could put all that weight on there to set those frets in, and it didn't matter. With the new ones, you can't do it. So having stuff in that tight space, it works well, but you adapt and you kind of evolve. And what I'm going to say about evolve is, like, I name my tools Little Dusty, Big Dusty, Little Chip, Big Chip. And I call my pin router, wherever it goes, because that's basically what happens. And I learned something from Matt Flaherty at Texas Toast is you set your pin router up about 6 feet from the wall with nothing around it, so it's easier to clean the space that it's going to sling all the byproducts of that pin routing session at random, because every time you make a turn, it's exiting the machine in a different direction. So it gets everywhere. My Big Dusty is my 96-inch edge sander from Grizzly, and that thing, I would much rather run it outside than inside. The second Big Dusty is my 36-inch surface sander, and that I prefer to run outdoors too. Now my Big Chip is my my surface planer, and that's got a duct on it, and I can kind of control that a little bit, but it's still tough. Now, one of the things you have to consider when you're in a tight and small space and you're trying to do all this woodworking stuff is sawdust explosions. It's a real thing. If you put all those particles in the air and you've got sparks, you could have a big boom really fast. There are explosive techniques they call dust initiators and stuff like that that will basically blow the doors and windows out of a building. So be really careful about that. And whenever I talk to somebody, you never know what the space is, what their situation is, why they're working out of a small space, why they don't want it bigger. I remember there was a guy on YouTube who used to work out of his garage, and at the beginning of the show, he pulled his wife's car out, wheel all his tools out to where they could be set up, do his work, and then at the end of the show, he'd clean it up, wheel everything back, park the wife's car back in the garage, and end the show. Like I said, that's a lot of time to set up and tear down, and the motivation starts to wane, and you'll see some of the stuff starts to get, it's like the treadmill in the house that is now a wardrobe closet instead of a treadmill because everything's hanging on it. You don't want to get in that situation. So when you are buying or putting together a bunch of tools to work on guitars, take several things into consideration. The function you need of that tool, is it going to burn the wood if you're using something that small? Like a lot of people will tell you, oh, just get a bunch of trim routers, you'll be fine. Get a 3-horse router. If you're going to be cutting maple and mahogany and routing that, you're going to get good bits. Get a good router. It will go with it. It will go a long way. Over time, you will have 7 or 8 routers. Nature of the beast. You mount them in a fixture like that rigid behind me, and it stays in that fixture. There's no reason to really take it out and try and use it in another place. And back when I got those, I think those routers were like $69. I have no idea with inflation what these routers are costing now. But the things I have in here, you always saw the guitar vise. I have 4 of those guitar vices that are set up on various benches. I've got my big table saw, like I said. I've got my Shopbox pin router. I've got my wood racks in here. I've got the jigsaw in here. I've got the radial arm saw that is dedicated only to fret slotting. It's got, that StewMac fret slot blade on it, and it's set up for that, and that's all I do with that saw. I've got my table saw in here. It's buried under a bunch of stuff someplace that I won't be using for a while. But I kept, my hand tools out, my nut slotting stuff I kept out, anything to work with electronics. If I pan the camera over for a second on my fancy mount, you'll see my racks that usually are on the wall, and these have everything from knobs to capacitors the mini toggle switches, 5-way switches, rotary switches, my potentiometers and some of the knobs and saddle blanks. And that's like the main course. If you're gonna do anything to do guitar repairs, have parts available. And find somebody that you could buy parts for. If you're gonna do it as a business, one, get a business license. Why? Because when you go to some of these companies to get professional or licensed business discounts, if you don't have that tax number from your state and your business license number, they're gonna charge you retail instead of wholesale. Now, if I had to pay retail on all the parts that I buy, I wouldn't be in business. It's just that you can't charge people that much and stay afloat. Because remember, you have to put your labor fee on top of that. So if I've got to pay, if somebody wants to charge me $39 for a 5-way switch, and I'm putting a new 5-way switch in your guitar, what am I going to tell you? It's $100. You know, it's not feasible to do that. That's why you buy that stuff business to business through some of the distribution companies that are out there. And that's why I argue with Stu Mac sometimes, because we really don't have that for the guys. And Stu Mac it caters to a lot of hobbyists, which is great. I got no problem with that. But when they ask me and they say, well, why aren't you buying more stuff from us? Because some of the stuff I could buy cheaper other places, because you're not helping out the business guys, you're helping out the hobbyist, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But anyway, if there's any pieces of equipment you guys want me to go over and explain and tell you why I did this or why I did that, I'm guessing I'm going to get some questions on the radial drill press for one, and I'll put out some information on the Grizzly guitar vise, which looks a lot like the Stu Mac vise. It's just green, and it may or may not be cheaper, but that's something else that's out there. So anyway, this is Tom at Talon Guitar Works. Remember, only half my ideas are any good, and hope you guys are having a great weekend, and let me know what you want to see in the miniature shop. Bye.